everyone. I hope you're all safe and healthy, and I decided to make some videos about baking and the basics and the techniques and the chemistry and why things are done. So I thought today I would start with the chocolate chip cookie, which is a very, very classic dessert. And I'm sure that a lot of you don't know why things are done when you make cookies, such as creaming butter. What is light and fluffy? Why do you add the flour at the end? Do you really need to beat that butter and sugar that long? And the answer to all those questions I'm going to let you in on. So when you make chocolate chip cookies, I use a KitchenAid. I'm going to add the butter, which I can post this recipe on my blog, but what I'm using is half a cup of butter, which is 113 grams if you use gram. If you don't, just use one stick. And so it is softened, as you can see. It's very soft, and I'm adding that to the bowl. And along with that, I will be adding my sugar, which here is 88 grams. Half a cup minus 1 tablespoon. Then some brown sugar too. I'm also adding 88 grams, or half a cup minus a tablespoon. I like baking with grams a lot more than baking in the US cups because grams are much more accurate. Every time you measure out a cup of flour, it is always 130 grams. Compared to if you use a scoop, it can vary by probably about a quarter of a cup, an eighth of a cup, which will really change what you're baking. Definitely, because baking is chemistry. It relies on reactions. So you want to make sure it's as accurate as possible. And it's also okay if you're using grams if you go off by a couple. It's such a sensitive, scales are so sensitive that it's okay. It won't make that big of a difference. So I have my butter, my brown sugar, and my granulated sugar all in my bowl. And the first step in making chocolate chip cookies is the creaming method. And this is used in most cookie recipes and most cake recipes. And basically, the creaming method is when you beat the butter and sugar together, and the sugar is so coarse that it's creating air pockets in the softened butter. And so if your butter is too hard, you won't get those air pockets. So you want it to be softened, room temperature. So you're going to beat that I do it for about 5 minutes on the KitchenAid, and you're going to get those air pockets, and the air pockets assist in the rising of the cookies. So this is actually a mechanical leavener, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of all this stuff, but I'll give you a little overview. When you're baking, there's 3 different types of leavening. There is biological, which is using yeast, such as in breads. There's chemical, like baking powder or baking soda, and mechanical, which is air. So chocolate chip cookies use both chemical and mechanical, since they have baking soda and air beat into them. So we're going to put this on the mixer for about 5 minutes. I'm back. I creamed butter and sugar until light and fluffy, and this is what it looks like. You can see. It's very light. If you were making this and you started out mixing it and you looked at it, it was definitely darker than this. So this is what we're going for, light and fluffy. So I realized that I forgot to talk about the brown sugar. It's so important in chocolate chip cookies. So basically, what makes a chocolate chip cookie besides the chocolate is the brown sugar. Because have you ever seen a chocolate chip cookie recipe without it? But the brown sugar has molasses in it, and the molasses is very acidic. So molasses will interact and react with the baking soda and cause the chemical reaction that will make it rise. So you need the molasses in it. Regular cane sugar isn't going to give you that reaction that you need. Also, brown sugar makes the cookies much more chewier and moister and softer. So if you're just using regular cane sugar, they're probably going to be a little bit crunchier and crispier. And also, that'll change with the ratio of cane sugar and brown sugar you have in the cookie recipe you're using. If the ratio has higher cane sugar, it's going to be not as chewy, compared to if it has more brown sugar, it's going to be more chewy. So I usually go 50-50 because that's how I like my cookies. I like them 50-50. you get the best of both worlds. So while I was mixing it, I did scrape it down a couple times because you want to make sure it's all getting mixed together. And then after you're done, I always scrape it down again. And then I'm going to be adding my vanilla and my egg. A teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. And you want to add the vanilla straight to the fat because it kind of bonds better with fat. It'll mix together better. You'll have more vanilla flavor. So always add your extracts to your fats. And then I'm going to add my egg. In this recipe, it's just one egg, one large egg. And eggs are very important in baking. The egg yolk is an emulsifier, which basically means it combines all the ingredients together. The eggs in chocolate chip cookie recipes help to coat and kind of keep the air pockets intact for when the cookies are baking. It'll really keep it together and make sure that the butter doesn't melt too early and form an extremely flat cookie. So you definitely want to have your eggs in your cookie recipes. So I'm going to put this back on for barely any time, just to mix it together. And then we're going to do the dries after that. And that's it. When I make my cookies and I cream my butter, I use about medium-high speed, and same with the egg. But when I add my flour, I'm going to go lower. So I'm going to scrape it off the paddle again. You use the paddle when you do the creaming method. I don't know if I said that, but do not use the whisk, do not use the bread hook. Use the weird-looking paddle thing. And so this is what it looks like now. I'm going to scrape it down again. Make sure it looks like it's all mixed together. Looking good. So I'm just going to set this aside, kind of back in the mixer. And then I'm going to take a separate medium-sized bowl, and in here I'm going to add the dry ingredients. Now I'm not adding them straight into the wet ingredients because you still want to mix the dry ingredients together and kind of make sure that the baking soda is all combined so that when you add it in, it's even more combined and even more mixed together, or else it's not going to rise correctly. Also, I feel like when you whisk flour, if there's clumps, it kind of breaks them up, so you're not going to have weird clumpy cookies with flour. Nobody wants that. Trust me. So I'm using some King Arthur flour. King Arthur is awesome, so I highly recommend using King Arthur. It's all-purpose flour. I could explain the differences of flour. Maybe that'll be a different video because there's so many different flours out there that you can use. And some of my recipes also use combinations of different flours. So I think that'd be a good follow-up video is types of flours. So I'm using all-purpose. And it is 1.5 cups of flour, or 195 grams. Now I am adding 1 teaspoon of baking soda. There is a difference between baking powder and baking soda. Baking soda needs acid to react, while baking powder doesn't. It kind of just reacts with heat. Or it's double acting. It reacts when you add it and then when you add heat. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and I use kosher salt. It is honestly the best type of salt for baking. I don't recommend the iodized salt. It's a little more powerful. So, kosher salt. Then I'm going to whisk it together, just quickly. Make sure it's all combined, and there we go. I'm also going to put the chocolate chips in a bowl, which I have already, but it's about 2 cups of chocolate chips. If you like chocolate, you can add more. If you kind of want less chocolate, do what you want. I have my creamed butter in here, and now I'm going to put it back on the mixer and add my flour. So the flour is added at the end because we're not trying to build that much gluten in a cookie. Compared to where bread, you need the gluten to make the structure, because that's what flour does, it creates structure. So in cookies, we don't want much gluten. We just want it to come together, and then that's it, we're turning off the mixer. So I added my flour. Sometimes I'll add 1/2, mix it, and then add another 1/2, but this is a pretty small recipe, so I don't think it's going to go all over me, but because I'm videotaping this, it probably will. So now I'm just going to mix it together. I mix it until it's about 75%, and then I add in my chocolate chips and mix it until it is a cohesive cookie dough. Scrape down the sides, because the flour tends to get up there. So this is about what I'd say is like 75% mixed. There's still some dry stuff on the bottom, but for the most part it's all mixed together. And now I'm going to add the chocolate chips. And this really helps make sure that you're not over mixing the dough and forming too much gluten to make a dense cookie. So that's what I do. I do about 75% for my cookies and my cakes if I'm adding something into them. Just kind of scrape it off again. Adding in my chocolate chips. Oh yeah. Can't wait to eat these. Okay, and then putting it back on for barely any time, just until the chocolate chips are basically dispersed evenly. There is our chocolate chip cookie dough. And I will be posting this recipe on my blog. And you can use parchment on your sheet tray, or what I'm using is a Silpat, mainly because I don't have any parchment. So Silpats are awesome. I don't use them 100% of the time just because it is kind of annoying to clean. They get kind of greasy, but when it's something like this where there is no parchment paper, they're very helpful. So I'm going to make these into little balls because I don't have a cookie scoop anymore. I broke it. And I'm going to make it about this size, kind of large cookies, which I like. So I'm going to put this on the trays, and then I'm just going to push them down a little bit till they're about that size. Just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is they're going into the oven, 350 degrees, and I bake them for about 6 minutes. And then I will rotate the tray and bake for varying 4 to 6 more minutes depending on the size, how well you want them cooked, and bake them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video about chocolate chip cookies, kind of the chemistry, why we cream the butter and sugar, and anything else. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. I will be posting this recipe on my blog very, very, very soon, and I will let you know when it is posted. And I'm going to keep doing some videos about basic baking because we're all home. There's nothing else to do. Might as well learn something, right? So I hope you like this. Bye, everyone.